Alright, Fnatic versus SK Telecom. This has been highly requested for obvious reasons. Fnatic showed up for the first time. This is going to be quite a different review because I think I want to put a lot of emphasis on the psychological aspects of the game. And Fnatic, up until this point, before this game against SK Telecom, they didn't really play. They didn't really play to their level. They struggled against Clutch Gaming twice. And the games against RNG and SKT just... there was no horsepower at all in what Fnatic wanted to accomplish. And that was very disappointing, honestly. Up until this point, they were playing the YamatoCannon, which is strong. YamatoCannon is quite strong. I don't want to remove from that fact because YamatoCannon is in fact very strong. But I think YamatoCannon doesn't emphasize on Fnatic's strengths. And here we have a Fnatic draft that they got away with 2 games in a row where they are picking first 3 Xayah, Gragas, Gangplank. It's a very clear recipe of what Fnatic want to accomplish. They want to put Whip on an island, and they want to make sure that the Fnatic bot lane is the aggressors. Make sure Hylissang is playing something that is mobile and can move and engage. Whip on the Gangplank has a very strong lane phase. He knows how to get the most out of Gangplank early on. And then the Gragas for Broxa. It kind of, you know, if you watched my video on how Fnatic could potentially win Worlds, this is the recipe that I wanted to see. You know, something that can provide a lot of space, that isn't so lane-centric. Veigar is not a 2v2 mid-champion. Veigar is just there to survive and later cause a lot of problems for all of these champions, because honestly, Veigar Cage is really good against all of them. It's good against Lee, good against Ali, good against Vlad, good against Akali. Honestly, there's very little champions that are good against Veigar Cage. It's just a very strong ability. So Veigar always, if you can get through lane, the E is very powerful, unbelievably OP. And Leona is a great champion this tournament. I think it showed up big time. The buffs have been showing through finally, and just the engage in itself is very powerful, and the fact that she's so naturally tanky makes her strong. And then Hiri Baba is, you know, a great Leona. He's, you know, he's a great Leona sometimes, a worse Leona sometimes. It's, it depends. And I feel like when it comes to Hylissang, the trust of his team is so important. I remember listening to an interview with Hylissang, and I think part of that genius is knowing that his team trusts him completely, and I think that was lacking. Even at the start of this game, it was lacking. So SK Telecom, they have a very standard composition that has a lot of scaling power. Kai'Sa scales well, Akali scales well, Vladimir scales well. They'll have to get some mild advantages in lane, then play on split because they should win split. Gangplank maybe itemizes magic resistance, makes it harder for Akali. But itemization is quite easy for Fnatic. They just need to buy magic resistance pretty much against Akali and Vlad, and their backline should be relatively safe because it's going to be very difficult for Kai'Sa and Lee to enter. But here the main point is Fnatic, you know, they have a lot of champions that are tough to kill. Veigar is hard to gain entry on. Even Veigar can go something like Abyss of Mask, something ridiculous to become even beefier and survive bad lane matchups. But this is something less frequent. Honestly, Veigar as a whole is less frequent. So here, I think if Fnatic is even coming into mid-game, they definitely have the tools to control the space to make sure that SK Telecom's composition cannot head into that space. But Vladimir should eventually outscale GP on side, Akali should win Veigar early, and bottom, I think Kai'Sa Alistar shouldn't have prio against Leona and Xayah. But I think if Lee just plays around bottom, then there's no entry for Leona, because Leona, her weakness is that she can only go forward. Alistar can survive poke. He has his passive where he heals his teammates when creeps die. He can stand on the tower, and you know, Leona's tankiness is, it's activated. So this is not something that you can use while you're eating poke or something like this. So Leona, only one way in. And we will see in this game, still Fnatic, I think Fnatic came into this game not believing that they can win. That was the hardest part to view. And when I saw the beginning of it, I was very worried. I was seeing Whippo do some action on his GP. This made me happy, because this means Whippo is alive and well. Because this is classic Whippo. Look at him go. He's going, and then he's looking to charge up the Q. Like Khan warded the bush level 1, which is absolutely nuts. Super crazy. Super crazy that they got this ward off. What is it, Muffin? Muffin, come in here. Stop shouting in the other room. Muffin! Nevertheless, we continue. Khan getting pressured. Flash for flash. Very good considering Broxa is gonna land on top side, but most likely Broxa, if I remember correctly, bases and goes Predator into bottom. Lee pathing into bottom side. He didn't have a leash. So the position of him is unknown, and Gragas cannot really face check Lee. Now with the GP positioning, he's going deep to spot, puts a ward, doesn't use the plant because he doesn't want to get spotted, and this is something that most junglers do when they do a 3-camp clear, is that they leave a ward, and now Lee Sin's pathing is spotted. He's going to be in the bottom side, and now Broxa needs to be kind of worried if Lee takes his blue or something like this. Very big deal not to take the plant there. They're being very, very careful about this. Fnatic defend the buff, defend the Gromp. They didn't show either here when they were defending, so SKT couldn't really read if Gragas is around or not, but now they go for it. Actually, what am I saying? SKT know Gragas path. They know Gragas path inside out. I'm just gonna check on my cat. Okay, so we were talking about Brox's pathing, and they knew actually. The word was on Raptor, and they saw him going to top side. So SKT with easy punish, because the bot lane Prio. Well, they had to give up Prio, I think, because of the reverse start of Lee. I think Xayah and Leona, honestly, maybe they don't get Prio. It's not like Leona level 1 is that crazy. Here Hilisan could have flashed. I think this was not that great. Maybe he should have continued punching Alistar and then flash, and then maybe they even kill effort here. I think it was weird that Hilly didn't flash and eat onto the target that is the most far away. The matchup should be in the favor of Akali, but unless, Faker needs to play it in a way where he freezes the wave in front of his tower and then forces all in together with Klid. And this is something that made me worried about SK Telecom, is that they didn't force so well. Here's the TP of Veigar. Nemesis fake pressuring that Gragas is here, because here, if Gragas is not in this position and Faker goes, then he can chunk him pretty well, but Faker is just rushing mid because he wants to push and then base. That's the reason he doesn't go. He prioritizes other things. Faker is the type of player that wants to win the game. You're feeding Muffin. Grid is spotted, but after BF sword on Kaiser, looks very grim on bottom side. GP has a bit of an advantage. Kali didn't base yet. Ilisang is solo contesting. And this BF sword, the Kaiser really hurts. Look at this BF sword Kaiser. Us. Boom. BF sword Kaiser. Press the attack, third attack as well. Just a rough one. Fnatic used GP ult here. Ilisang committed too early. Maybe it was a good opportunity for Fnatic to actually contest because Leo dropped so low and Kali needed to base and had no items. But all things considered, this was, the outcome of this was terrible for Fnatic. Because here Fnatic are losing this game quite hard. Bottom matchup is completely boom, and Kali and Vladimir are definitely, strong champions. I guess SKT's draft by no stretch of the imagination is bad. The next big thing that's gonna happen is that SKT are gonna look for a dive onto mid lane, but they choose a target with stopwatch. This is something that makes me worried about SK Telecom, as in this group, they weren't really tested. And honestly, if they continue to play at the same level, cat hairs in my mouth. If they continue to play at the same level as they have during group stage, then it's going to be difficult for them. Because they were very inactive. Any sense of proactivity was met with this. Here I think Broxah can double kill. We have a 1-for-1, and here if Broxah skills ult and doesn't walk towards Clid, I think he can kill. But he just goes in range of Clid ult. Because here Clid is tanking the tower. He has no W, he has no flash. If Broxah skills R, doesn't walk in melee range of Clid, he can ult him into the turret and he dies. But just poor reactions. But here, just SKT, the way they force. They don't have information on Broxah. Broxah played a good defensive game considering his lanes can't really provide them with anything at this point. Broxah needs to salvage the game by being in position when SKT tried to do something aggressive. So he did a very good job. I think Broxah deserves to be praised for this. Nemesis is looking for base. Akali Vega matchup is a rough of Veigar. There's nothing he can really do. But he's scaling, so he's happy. I'm happy. 1-for-1 on the top side. The Sheen Qs are starting to hurt. Vladimir itemizing for lane. Double CDR. Standard stuff. Now Clid has a choice here. He has a choice of either impacting bottom or top. That's the hardest part here for Broxah, is that Clid just needs to make the choices that makes him the least predictable. Because here I think Clid has winning formulas on every side of the map. You wanna leave? Okay, you can leave. You good? You good? Okay, you're good. So Clid wins on every side of the map. It's just a choice. SKT with the Prio from bottom have options. Prio from mid, they have options. They just need to make a choice, honestly. SK Telecom are controlling full bottom side. They'll have to deal with the GP ultimate. I really like this ward that Effort placed. Then here, Leona and Zaya are stuck into the turret, so SK Telecom are looking to dive the situation. especially because Nemesis is so low HP. Because this, honestly, here, it looks like a good scenario, because everyone is committed here, but what goes terribly wrong here is the target selection. So the big mistake here is just you're going on Veigar, and you're going on Gragas, and he has stopwatch. That denies so much of the damage here. That's a stopwatch, and Nemesis is in position, and then in between the turrets, they are stuck. Also here, effort is not tanking the tower that's the most important, and the turret that is next to the mid lane tower. So here if SKT just dive the Veigar like they were supposed to, then this would be much better. But here instead, effort goes out of mid turret range, and this situation turns into an absolute disaster. Hylissang boops him, and here is just a big swing play that Fnatic have been waiting for, because they had very little room to be proactive in this game because of what happened bottom. Hylissang died twice. Hylissang contested the Drake. He died to the gank as well when the map was divided for quite some time. And when Fnatic's bot lane is behind here, Gragas has no good options to pressure the game. He just needs to make defensive play after defensive play, but SK Telecom with the dive on top was not that great. The dive on top was honestly just too rushed. I don't think they need to do this. I think Lid could involve Faker in every play by going through 2v2 mid into side. And here, when they actually had an opportunity to dive with better numbers, they just dove so terribly where it didn't really work out. And Fnatic got an opportunity here to force while SK Telecom have a lot of their big cooldowns down. So here, to discuss this particular position, is Fnatic want to force because they have the bottom TP ready, and they have no ultimate on Akali, no ultimate on Ali, holy, you can't spell Akali without Ali. Kai'Sa has no ultimate. Kai'Sa was also out of position. He's kind of like, if we take a look at Kai'Sa's movements here, it's very poor. She's going through into bottom, and then she's going into top, into mid, and then she's going for mid wave, and then she's backing off, and now she's committing. So this was Teddy wasting a lot of time. Maybe it could be earlier. Then afterwards here, the Vladimir just walking up too far, and Hylissang doing what Hylissang knows best. He finds the engage where they can one-shot the Vladimir. Super, super good. SK Telecom managed to last hit the Rift Herald for 100 Gs. I don't recall if they are allowed to pick it up. But all things considered here, massive gold swing for Fnatic. They win the fight, they get 3 platings on bottom, and on top of that, Kai'Sa just lost maybe 20 creeps to the bottom tower. So definitely a massive gold swing, considering they are in such a composition that is so weak early on, and they had such a bad start. And I felt like with this particular moment where SK Telecom dove and fucked everything up, this moment was so important. I really want to put emphasis on that, because before that, I don't think Fnatic played in a way where they believed that they could win this group or get out of this group. I felt like they played scared. Reckless echoed this sentiment. Or he didn't echo the sentiment, he said the sentiment. I'm not creating any sentiment here. He said that they were playing to lose, and I playing to not lose. They're playing afraid because of the fear of every game mattering so much. And I felt that before even the Reckless interview. If you look at the analyst segments, I said that Fnatic are playing with zero confidence, and they're not drafting in a way that empowers them. So with that being said, this moment was so key, because I felt like this is where they finally came to life. This is the moment where they finally realized that they can actually do some shit. This dive, let's take a look at it again. Effort, target selection, goes for the man with stopwatch. Nemesis gets out. Nemesis gets to do some of his combos, some of his damage here. Honestly, Nemesis did no damage. And during all of this, Fnatic are pushing bottom. They did this with 4v5. And here in this fight, very easy for them to force because the enemy has no ultimates. They're very happy to force effort. No ult here. He's in the mix. Ilyasan going for the body block. And then Klid also ended up dying. Boom, boom, boom. Fnatic come to life. This particular composition had only one option, and that's to play through bottom. And that door closed so fast because of the mistakes of Hylissang, and it didn't work. So SKT managed to pick up the Herald, and Khan got some monies off of this. But now Bip was some monster fed, he is one-shotting this wave, and SK Telecom, this dive is dangerous. This dive is dangerous. Here if Whippo... Yeah. Yeah. Vlad is dead. Can't dive Trinity Force GP so much. And then, you know, with this dive on top and with this dive on mid lane now, it just felt like, you know, SKT put themselves in a position where they need to make something happen because they're afraid of how this team fight, this composition of Fnatic is going to function. And while I put a lot of focus on Fnatic and how this was their awakening and was their punishment of SKT's over-aggression, I felt like SK Telecom, in the mind of them being forced to, what's it called, be proactive, it looked very poor this game. Very, very poor. In the game against, both games against RNG, SKT didn't really need to be proactive. They honestly didn't need to be proactive at all. RNG eventually reached a point where they threw the game always. That was the biggest issue for RNG. RNG did so many things good. Karsa honestly out-jungled Klid. Klid did a lot of amazing things later on in the game. And that's like the story of SK Telecom, the team fighting, some barrels here from either Klid or barrels from Khan, or some crazy team fight power with Kaiser with 6 items on Teddy. There are always some things that, you know, to reach those points, RNG made a lot of mistakes. And SKT against RNG was rarely proactive. They were almost never doing anything proactive. In the first game, I remember the team fight that TF ulted onto Zoe, and then RNG just completely destroyed them because this was SKT's attempt at being proactive. And that worries me for the future of SKT. I don't think SKT, even though they came out as first in this particular you know, group, I don't think they look the scariest at the World Championship. And I think there is still that potential because SK Telecom, even though they didn't show too much in groups, that could be just a positive thing, you know. The last game they played against Clutch Gaming, they did in fact go Elise, Akali, Camille, and they had a very strong early game, very proactive early game, but that was against Clutch Gaming. So we have to see if this is something that they planned specifically for this group in the shape of RNG. They knew if they play against RNG, we just need to focus on the scaling, have stronger team fights, and eventually RNG is gonna fuck up enough for us to win the game. If they had this approach, we cannot fault them because honestly it worked. It worked 2 times. If this was their approach, okay. Because SKT, even though in this group stage they weren't as proactive as maybe you need to be to win a world championship, we've seen them be very proactive during different times. Most of the time, you know, I think SK Telecom is very good at maintaining the status quo. They're very good at controlling space. They're very good at suffocating the enemy. But when they need to be the ones diving and pressuring, it looks a bit worse. I think SK Telecom definitely shine in a position where they outscale the enemy, have better team fighting, and they just control the map in a way where the enemy can't force on you. And now in this game, SKT felt like they needed to force, dive on mid that that didn't work out. Now Akali forcing didn't work out. 2 dives on top that didn't work out. And Broxa played a very good game, honestly, all things considered. Very hard to jungle. I like to place junglers always when always when a jungler does well, when you have 3 lanes that are quite difficult to deal with. That's a reason to praise them big time. Okay. So Fnatic hovering into bottom side. Nemesis and Broxa sticking together. I respect it, considering you don't want to give Akali any opportunity to all in. She doesn't have ult now though, so maybe Nemesis can even win. The trading side, but outer towers tend to fall. They're so weak, and it's hard to keep them all open. I do believe Fnatic can just play 3 mid and then play to whatever side they want to, because I think Akali has an option of diving Veigar, and Veigar can just clear the waves before they crash to the turret anyway. You can use Event Horizon, all the creeps will get stunned, and then you W them, and then they will all die. So I think you can play away from Veigar as well, especially considering GP has no TP. So maybe this was just a wrong choice here, where they lost the top tower too soon. They could have just hovered into top side as well and play for that top tower that's alive. So this you could consider as a Fnatic mistake. The Horse Force is coming. The Event Horizon is nasty. An effort combos in. Illisang Flash fails. And Fnatic's Death Ball composition is really hard to deal with. Khan is not so strong, and Faker straight up just running it down. It is very hard to gain any entry. Gragas, Leona, GP, Veigar, Xayah, it's a composition that's almost next to impossible to engage on. And the fact that Fnatic have reached this point and they're ahead, it's very hard for SK Telecom to recover. Especially because they always want to recover the same way. They want to recover through team fighting. But that's next to impossible here against this composition. They needed to find more advantages through side and through splits, and then maybe eventually when Akali and Vladimir are fed enough, maybe they can combo down this team and find some victories. But now GP is just too fed. They need to be the ones itemizing defensive, and it just doesn't work out. Because if you take a look at SKT's itemization, Zigga's Armguard, Mercury's, X-Drinker, Mercury's, you know, strong items against Fnatic's lineup, but they need to be ahead. They need to be ahead. And they were poised to do that with what Fnatic gave them. But they just couldn't do it. Klid finding the wrong plays, SKT having the wrong idea about what they wanted to accomplish, the dive on mid, effort fucking up big time, and the game is pretty much over. It's pretty much a highlight of Fnatic just slaughtering SK Telecom at this point. But I think this game was so important because I feel like Fnatic finally were like, wow, we can actually freaking win. And the draft was really good. Really like the Veigar into this composition, and the only risk is if you play something like this against, for example, a G2, I think they could be more proactive in the early game. If you play this against a Griffin, with when a Griffin has a clear direction and what they want to accomplish, it could look dangerous too. Veigar tried to attempt a TP. The Fake is so fucking weak now. Nemesis going for Magi. I respect it. Effort dying. Replay into death. So that's fun. Whatever. Game is over. Fnatic come to life. I think the big thing still is SK Telecom's clear paths to victory always. Here they are met with a lot of champion picks that they weren't too sure about, and they went to peak comfort. If you look at SKT's telecom, if you look at SK Telecom's composition here, then it's very hard to complain about the individual champions. They're very, very strong. But Fnatic have definitely studied the next level of this, and Veigar is just so good into these picks. And Fnatic, considering they have the stronger team fight, SKT don't know how to claw their way back into this game. It's next to impossible. They needed to find more advantages through the fact that Veigar is tanking the waves over and over. Like the wave is just straight up, Akali is perma prio, bottom perma prio, top lane perma prio. There had to be more needed to be accomplished. And this is worrisome, very worrisome. I have to give props to Broxa for figuring out, he needs to play, usually if you're in a position where 3 lanes are no prior, you can't do any proactive play as jungle, and he found a defensive move into top lane, he found a defensive move in mid lane, and that's very, very good. Very well played here from Broxa. So that's super important. And that's Nash. So SKT, if we think about the future of SKT, we need to think, what will happen? Nevertheless, we continue with, oh my goodness, did I have the camera in the center the whole game? Oh my goodness. Did I even full screen it at any point? What a disaster, man. Anyway, I'm not redoing this. Screw that.